our existing expertise in decarbonization and infrastructure, it's a perfect partnership.
I completely agree with Larry. This is going to be the golden age of infrastructure investing, both in terms of the need for capital as well as investors who want that capital, okay?
In a move that's raising alarms across the nation, BlackRock, through its 2024 acquisition of Global Infrastructure Partners, or GIP, has surged into direct ownership of U.S. energy infrastructure.
BlackRock, one of the largest asset managers on Earth, which owns just about everything, appears to be quietly buying up huge pieces of the U.S. energy grid. But don't worry, they say it's all about building infrastructure for artificial intelligence, so don't worry about it. Nothing to see here.
Shifting from passive investor to hands-on controller of critical utilities and grids.
The company BlackRock that's f***ing everybody in America, they're gonna be buying utility companies now. That's right, utility companies. They've already purchased an electric company up in Minnesota. You. They have plans to invest hundreds of billions of dollars into the utility market here in the United States so you can watch your electricity and gas bills go up to nosebleed levels.
The Minnesota Public Utilities Commission approved a $6.2 billion takeover of Elite, parent of Minnesota Power, by a BlackRock-led consortium with Canada Pension Plan in October of 2025, granting private equity majority control over power serving 150,000 customers.
This $6.2 billion deal follows months of debate and pushback from groups across Minnesota.
It is not always going to be in the financial best interest of BlackRock to keep our rates as low as possible. That's not the business that they're in. They're in the business of making profit from as many things as possible.
I'm a Minnesota Power customer. So if you have read stories over the years about beloved brands like Joann's or Red Lobster being driven into the ground by private equity, now imagine if that was your utility, because that's where private equity sector is going. As they have extracted all of the value out of the retail and service sector that they can, they are increasingly turning their attention to infrastructure and the things that make up the material basis of our lives.
Meanwhile, GIP is in advanced talks for a potential $38 billion acquisition of AES Corporation, which is a major player with renewable assets nationwide.
Larry's team drafts the game plan for restructuring portfolios, valuing toxic assets, and bailing out collapsing banks. Larry Fink had turned the greatest financial disaster of a generation into his greatest triumph. While American finance takes years to rebound, he emerges with friends in high places, more money than ever, and what he's always wanted: the influence of a president, a company like a world power, without a single campaign nor a single vote. True power. And while no one was taking notice, he has created a playing field where, no matter what, BlackRock always wins.
Thousands of miles of overhead pylons will be erected to connect offshore wind farms, solar farms, data sheds, and millions of cars and other renewable sources to that national grid.
In Texas, BlackRock's footprint grows via GIP-owned firms like Eolian, developing massive battery storage projects such as the Padua complex near San Antonio to stabilize ERCOT amid retiring fossil plants and exploding AI-driven demand.
Blackstone is currently in the process of purchasing the Texas-New Mexico grid. BlackRock actually started under Blackstone, and while they still claim that they're separate now, if you look at their yearly reports and their quarterly reports, they still push the ESG narrative. The Texas Attorney General here has a lawsuit against BlackRock for that very reason, where they were manipulating the grids and pushing solar and wind technology and offsetting coal and oil and gas because of them pushing this ESG narrative.
Consumer advocates and experts warn of profit-driven models loading debt onto the utilities, slashing accountability, and hiking residential bills to subsidize big tech clients, eroding public oversight of essential infrastructure serving millions, and private equity prioritizes returns over resilience. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.
Hello and welcome, everyone. Hope you guys are doing well out there. 9:05 p.m. on 12/21/25. This is your host, Doug Diamond. You are at the Diamond Report Live, and let's take a look at the news. We've got lots going on, as usual, it seems like. I think I say that every week. But you'll notice the screen isn't quite as packed full of different things and various graphics and stuff. Had a few requests. Well, one or two in particular. People asked me to tone that down a little bit. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. And most of the information as far as linking and things like that you would need to get to any of the Diamond Report information, most of that is in the description box below this video. So thank you guys for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. So it's Christmas week. How did that happen? I don't know. So trying to figure out. 12/21. We just have a few days left before Christmas Day, and I know many of you guys probably have big plans with family and so forth. I know we do. So let's take a look at the news, and then we'll talk about things as we progress tonight. Just want to say hello to everybody in chat. Got a few folks in there, Miss Emily, of course, and Susan, and several other folks. So hello to everybody in there, Miss Betty. So yeah, we'll come back to that in a little bit. I usually go back through the comments and look at them, kind of take it to the side and look at each and every post by different people more toward the end of the show. So we will save that for a little bit later. Anyway, this first article that I've got pulled up tonight is from Hal's website, halturnerradioshow.com, and Russia confirms no documents on any possible peace agreement now. So that does not sound good. Rumors are circulating throughout Europe claiming a meeting between U.S., Ukraine, Russia, and Europe is in the making toward a peace agreement. Those rumors are false. A possible trilateral meeting between Russia, U.S., and Ukraine is not currently being discussed, according to an aide to Russia's president for foreign policy. And the same person here, Yukashov is his name, went on to confirm that there are no documents on a peace settlement now. Europe and Ukraine are only sowing confusion, which, they want to prolong the war, of course. Says, meanwhile, the Russia-Ukraine conflict continues unabated. European military people have begun telling citizens that they must prepare for war with Russia, and propagandists in the U.S. leaked a phony story to Reuters claiming U.S. intel agencies agree Russia is planning a wider war with Europe, beginning against Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. This, too, is flatly denied by the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. And this is the tweet here where she's talking about this. No, this is lie and propaganda at Reuters is willingly pushing on behalf of warmongers who want to undermine Trump's tireless efforts to end this bloody war has resulted in more than 1 million casualties on both sides. I think it's mostly on the Ukrainian side. Now, they've lost a lot of young men that are Russians as well, but from what I understand, the Ukrainian side is the one that's taking the heavy casualties, and that Russia has effectively already won. So, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. Just wanted to point that out and draw your attention to that particular article. It's on Hal's website, halturnerradioshow.com. And then, let's see, I've got a few articles from needtoknow.news as usual as well. So we'll look at a couple of these and see what news they have on this site. 2 Brown University students are linked to other school shootings. What are the odds? 2 Brown University students, Mia Tretta, who was reportedly shot in the stomach during the school shooting at Saugus High School in 2019, and Zoe Weissman, who was nearby during the Parkland school shooting in 2018, have dominated in the media and set the narrative. Former CIA agent Kevin Shipp said that it is suspicious when victims and survivors appear on the scene at multiple suspected false flag or staged events that are unrelated. He explains why shootings at suspected orchestrated shootings are almost always involving only lone shooters. Yeah, it's always part of the narrative, isn't it? So yes, statistically, the chances of a person being in a school shooting twice are exceptionally low, though specific odds vary based on the definition of a, quote, school shooting. statistical probability, independent odds. If school shootings are treated as independent random events, the odds of being involved in two separate incidents are estimated between 1 in 100 million and 1 in 1 billion. So, now there's 2 students who survived the shooting at Brown in Rhode Island and supposedly survived the other 2 as well. Parkland and one other shooting, I guess. So, the whole thing's really suspicious. We've got more information on the Brown University thing as well. Supposedly, they got him. Supposedly, they found that the man who did it, but we'll look at that in a little bit. So, we'll get to that here in just a bit. I've got that pulled up on a separate tab on down the line here. Brown University shooter found dead, maybe linked to murdered MIT professor, which is this guy they're shown here. Poor video quality was released showing a portly man in a hoodie and mask leaving Brown, which we looked at that last week a little bit. After the alleged shooting attack that reportedly killed 2 students, Claudio Neves Valenti, I guess, a Portuguese national and Brown University student, was alleged to be the shooter, and he reportedly committed suicide. So that's very convenient, huh? He's also the suspect in the killing of MIT professor and fusion energy physicist Nuno Lourio, 47, who was pronounced dead at a local area hospital on Tuesday after being shot multiple times at his home on Monday night. He was also Portuguese. Some propose he was murdered for discovering free energy or alternate energy source. Israeli authorities are investigating if the murder is involved with Iran. Police identified the shooter as, and I mentioned him, Claudio, Portuguese national and Brown student. So this is, supposedly nice and tidy. They've already wrapped it all up, and they don't need to pursue it any further. So isn't that handy? It does appear to be the direction they're headed here, but they're also tying it to this guy too, which maybe there is a tie-in there. I don't know. But the whole thing just seems really questionable to me, at least. And then this one on needtoknow.news, catching up with Candace, her meeting with Erica Kirk, and interview with military whistleblower. This was really interesting. I don't know if you guys have been following this at all. I did over the last few days, and thought it was very interesting, very telling. Candace Owens met privately with Erica Kirk, yes, here in Nashville, not too far from where I am, actually, and was criticized for the lack of transparency and was accused of cutting a deal. Owens interviewed Mitch, quote-unquote Mitch, a military man who said that he saw Charlie Kirk's security chief, Brian Harpole, and Erica Kirk, and a congressman on a military base in Arizona on a secret meeting the day before Charlie was assassinated. Yes, and it's very believable. It sort of doesn't really sound like it when you look at the article here, when you're reading through this. But she does a good job of establishing Mitch's credibility and his long history with the military and how he really was there on the base for sure. Now, of course, you can't verify what someone else saw. There's no way to do that. And Candace makes a good point of saying that over and over. But to me, he came across as very believable. So I don't know if you guys have seen that or not. But I will try to remember a link to that in the Substack post that I send out. But it's here on this article on needtoknow.news. Top comment from Candace's audience regarding the private meeting between her and Erica was, transparency is never found in private meetings. That is where deals are made. Candace defended her action by saying that the private meeting was the only option offered by Erica Kirk. Candace said that Erica did admit that there was a message from Charlie about him fearing he would be killed the night before he was shot, and that the message was sent through signal rather than a text, and may have said that the left wanted to kill him rather than the ambiguous they, quote, they want to kill him. So she's just, from what I can tell, mostly just asking questions about her friend, trying to get to the bottom of this. Has she made some outlandish type of jumps in conclusions? I don't know, possibly. But it seems to me like most of what she's saying is based in what she's discovering. So I would say that, if you haven't followed this at all and are interested in it, her YouTube channel does a pretty good job of summing up all of the various and different things that have happened in this whole saga with Charlie Kirk. Says on Thursday, Candace interviewed Mitch, who's a former military man, and what he saw at the Arizona military base at Fort Huachuca. Mitch claims that he was with the U.S. Army Joint Task Force 6 35 years ago near the Mexican border, and that his team at that time discovered a cartel tunnel that said was used to smuggle 60 to 80% of the cocaine coming into the U.S. back at that time. He claimed that the U.S. was partnered with the cartels. He also said that he'd been threatened for decades. So, you could go down the road of, okay, why is he still alive then? But he really did have to hide his identity from what they've said here in the interview and what she's talked about as far as Mitch goes here. Mitch wanted some answers, and he walked into Fort Huachuca on September 9th, the day before Charlie was assassinated, seeking old records, and stumbled into a high-security, buzz-filled meeting. He said that he was 95 to 99% certain that he saw Erica Kirk in a ponytail with her striking blue eyes with Brian Harpole, the head of Charlie Kirk's security team. Mitch also said that Congressman Mark Amoti was there, who is from Vegas, the Vegas area. Other commenters supported her and wrote a reminder that Candace called a false flag attack happening in mid-December, and people are citing the Bondi Beach attack in Sydney. Here's her first tweet from November 28th, 2025. They have been signaling that a 9/11 style attack is coming the second week of December. So save this tweet, it will age well, Candace says. So this was posted from her on 11/28/25. Again, they have been signaling that a 9/11 style attack is coming the second week of December. Well, we're already into the third week. Save this tweet, it will age well. So yeah, I mean that was actually last week, right? Well, anyway, yeah, that would have already passed. So I'm not sure that that's really aged that well, in all honesty. But we'll see. We'll see where things go. Hopefully she's wrong about that. And then this one is another big story that happened earlier in the week. A lot of people talking about it. Dan Bongino to resign as FBI deputy director. Former podcaster and Fox News presenter and Secret Service agent Dan Bongino is leaving his post as FBI deputy director. He said that he was leaving due to long days and his wife is missing him. He did say, family issues, which, obviously that is part of the job. Megyn Kelly and Glenn Greenwald tried to suss out the reason for Bongino's departure after serving less than 1 year. Yeah, it's only been a few months. There has been a great loss of confidence in him and the FBI due to the Epstein debacle, and when he and Kash Patel insisted that Epstein killed himself. Yes, he lost a lot of credibility when he did that. Bongino contributed to the arrest of the alleged January 6th pipe bomber, Brian Cole, which we've talked about that before. Although many critics believe Cole is a patsy and that a female Capitol police officer is the person who planted the pipe bombs at the DNC and the RNC. If the pipe bomber is the female Capitol police officer, it would show that that J6 was a federal government operation, which I think everyone pretty much knows that it was at this point. Will show that it was a federal government operation and it would have serious consequences. Some critics believe that Cole is part of the cover-up. The statute of limitations on the J6 pipe bomber case expires in mere weeks on January 6th, 2026. So isn't that handy? So yeah, Bongino leaving the FBI. Not too surprising. I think he's mostly, it may be family issues in part, but I think he's also worried about his reputation. He's probably realized that when he got there, he was in way over his head as far as the swamp goes. So I think that he is simply trying to save face and get back to his podcasting career, which, I don't know. He's lost a lot of credibility to this point. I'm not one that had ever really listened to him. I'd seen clips of him before, so I can't really speak to that as far as the podcasting part goes and his reputation. But I think there'll be a lot of people who won't tune in just based on some of the lies and stuff that have been told during his time at the FBI. So I don't know. We will see. All right, need to know.news. One more from there. Thought this one was interesting just because this representative is from the area where I am. Representative Andy Ogles pushes for repeal of 1965 Immigration Act and to, quote, deport them all. I read that and I'm like, whoa, I like the sound of that. Let's see what he says. Representative Andy Ogles explained that the passage of the 1965 Immigration and Naturalization Act, known as Hart-Celler Act, opened the borders to massive inflows from the Third World. The 1965 law prioritized family reunification, which led to chain migration, where immigrants could bring family members into the U.S. This significantly increased immigration numbers and altered the demographic landscape of the country. Ogles wrote, the Hart-Celler Act scrapped the highly effective national origins quota system and replaced it with an immigration regime built to favor third world migration. Again, this was back in 65. It opened America's doors to mass inflows from the developing world, permanently reshaping our nation's demographics. Because of Hart-Celler, foreign mafias, third world gang lords, and communists took root in every major city. He criticized Zohran Mamdani and Ilhan Omar along with other cultures that are incompatible with American culture. In a recent speech, Ogles said, let's be clear, the United States of America is safer today because of President Trump. The United States of America is the dominant predator across all landscapes. Then he went straight to the numbers Congress has spent decades dodging. Since the 1965 Hart-Celler Act, we have seen chain migration on a scale I don't even think the authors of the bill could have imagined. He revealed stunning facts on the record. We've seen roughly 60 million migrants come into this country, about 90% of those from third world countries. There are roughly 300,000 Afghans in America. About 200,000 came in under Biden. Approximately 45% of Afghans are on food stamps. 68% are on Medicaid. Ogles didn't stop at domestic impact. He cited official European crime statistics that governments overseas are now openly warning about. He talks about Paris and London and so forth. And they're importing mostly all Muslims over there. But yeah, I'm looking to see where he gets into send them all back. X posted a long message from Geiger Capital, also reported by Trump on Truth Social, that advocating returning the Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1924, which strictly limited immigration to certain European countries and banned it from the third world. But Ogles went a step further. He explained what happened to the 1924 Act. The passage of the 1965 Immigration and Naturalization Act, known as Hart-Celler for Democrat Senator Philip Hart of Michigan and Democrat Representative Emanuel Celler of New York, the law opened the borders to the third world. He strongly suggested that Hart-Celler must be repealed by asking a rhetorical question about it, but from there he continued posting about the baleful effects of immigration, two of which are the election of anti-American leftists such as Ilhan Omar and Zohran Mamdani. He's just asking the question, should we repeal the act? So yeah, send them all back, he says. I can't say I disagree. It is a source of much of the problem. But I also think that no one in the Congress or anywhere else in D.C. has the fortitude to make that happen. Do you? Anyway, those are the articles on needtoknow.news. Liberty Beacon, Tulsi Gabbard sounds alarm on radical Islam, which we'll get into that in a minute. The West increasingly appears to be under attack from within, all thanks to nation-killing mass migration. News trends surrounding radical Islam have surged in recent weeks amid a series of alarming developments across the West. From the Afghan national who killed the one U.S. National Guard troop and severely injured another near the White House, to a terror attack in Australia and mounting threats against Christmas markets across Europe, the West increasingly appears to be under attack from within, all thanks to nation-killing mass migration. Yeah, that's the whole purpose. This is a plan. This is not an accident, is it? I'm just sort of adding that, but And then Tulsi Gabbard talking about this on Islamism. As Charlie said, it is fundamentally incompatible with our nation's foundation of freedom. They are working to implement these Islamic principles forced on people through laws or violence. Defend the West, she says. I think she's exactly right. Anyway, yeah, radical Islam. Islam is by nature radical if you do it the right way, right? It's the people who are not following the scriptures who are the nice ones. So if you can get people who are not following the scriptures to stay, I think that would be fine. Because for the most part, they are going to be pretty good additions to society. It's the radicals who are simply the people following the scriptures who are the ones that have to be deported or sent away in somehow. I don't know how. But anyway, that's what's going on here with the sounding of the alarm on radical Islam. Liberty Beacon, another article. Bill Clinton responds after half-naked photos appear in latest Epstein drop. Yep, and yet he continues to not get in trouble with this. I think it's because everyone knows how much he was involved. Bill Clinton responds after half-naked photos appear in latest Epstein drop. The White House hasn't been hiding these files for months, only to dump them late on a Friday to protect Bill Clinton. This is about shielding themselves from what comes next, Clinton's deputy chief of staff said. So there you go. For months, Democrats have tried to weaponize the delayed release of the Epstein files against Trump. After Trump got all weird about releasing the files in February, in recent weeks, House Dems selectively leaked materials to suggest the delay meant Trump had something to hide, even though none of the photos or emails implicated him in Epstein's sex trafficking. And after enormous bipartisan pressure spearheaded by Rep. Thomas Massie and MTG, Trump finally signed the Epstein Files Transparency Act into law, requiring the release of, quote, all the Epstein files no later than Friday. And while the DOJ only released about half of what they were supposed to, they did offer a deeper peek into what's going on behind the scenes. And here we're hiding some of the faces, I guess, of some of the victims, one of which is sitting on Bill Clinton's lap here. The first tranche of DOJ files released Friday include thousands of pages of material on Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, along with photos featuring high-profile figures such as Bill Clinton, Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, Mick Jagger, Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, Sarah Ferguson, Prince Andrew, and Bill Gates. Here's Jagger here in this picture. So there you go. One standout image captures Clinton in a pool or a hot tub with an unidentified woman whose face the DOJ blacked out. So again, probably considered one of the victims, I'm thinking. I don't know. Yeah, indicating that the individual is a victim or underage, which to me that would be one and the same, which was allowed by the Epstein Files Transparency Act. So there he is enjoying the hot tub with the young lady that's in there with him. Anyway, yeah, so there's just a handful of pictures on here, but the point is they did release some stuff, but not very much. Not very much as far as pictures go. C19 VAXX myocarditis death in boys is a very small price to pay. So says Paul Offit, fired FDA advisor, says 5-year-old boys' lives are expendable when it comes to proving Big Pharma's research on safety. Yeah, as long as it's not his 5-year-old boy, I guess. It's fine. A fired FDA advisor, top vaccine pimp Paul Offit, speaking with Big Pharma mascot Dr. Mike, is dishing out the BS again. Yeah, Paul Offit is a known, I would say calling him a vaccine pimp would be a very nice description of him. It's far worse than that, actually. Bioterror Propaganda Roundup, the latest updates on the new normal, chronicling the lies, distortions, and abuses by the ruling class. Former FDA advisor, vaccine advisor, and top vaccine pimp Paul Offit, speaking with Big Pharma twink mascot Dr. Mike, recently discussed why myocarditis in boys receiving the CV-19 jabs and blood clots in the brain from the failed J&J shots were, quote, very small prices to pay. So, because of all of the wonderful, all of the good that the VAXXs did for everyone. Don't we know that to be true, right? I mean, I hope this guy has to answer for some of the stuff that he has said and some of the direction he's tried to point people over the years by taking these horrific things, meaning VAXXs. So anyway, yeah, he's totally fine with 5-year-olds and anyone else dying while taking the CV-19 jabs. Totally fine with it. It's okay with him. It's a price. It's a very small price to pay, he says. Wow. All right, and then technocracy.news, the most recent articles here, the reality of Orwell's 1984, scholarly analysis explicitly describes 1984 as a technocratic dystopia, as a counterpoint to H.G. Wells's concept of benevolent scientific planners. Wells directly referenced technocracy in The Shape of Things to Come, describing it as an attempt to restate economics on a physical energy basis and imagining scientific elites governing a rationally ordered world, a vision very close to technocratic ideology. Orwell said that Wells's confused mechanical progress with justice, liberty, and common decency. So that's interesting. George Orwell on what H.G. Wells said. Pretty wild. So that's one of the most recent articles. Surveillance state is making a naughty list, and you are on it. Government bureaucrats might think that they have some control over the surveillance state, but they would be dead wrong. The technology and infrastructure drive all data into the hands of technocrats. Our book, The Final Betrayal, makes it abundantly clear that arch technocrats like Musk, Thiel, David Sachs, Mark Anderson, Howard Lutnick, Russ Vought, Michael Kratsios, etc. have invaded Washington, D.C. with the intent to turn America into a post-1984 dystopia. Along the way, they are destroying the historical government infrastructure and replacing functionality with AI. That does seem to be what's happening, doesn't it? AI being used to replace so many things. Chinese genetic scientists modify fungus protein to replace chicken. Lovely, huh? Is Breitbart slipping in Chinese propaganda or just woke climate nonsense? Either they inserted an AI story without checking it, or it was written by a human with the same effect. Well, goody goody. Fake fungus chicken is easy on the environment, tastes better than chicken, takes up less land than real chickens, it is speedier than beef production to boot. I'm blanking on how to cultivate chickens at any price. Genetic scientists need to stop obsessing over creating fake food in competition with God, who gave us the real thing in the first place. So, well said. Yes, so a fake fungus to replace chicken. Wow. No thanks. Don't mess with my chicken. That's what I say. All right, that's a technocracy.news article. Police have identified former Brown University student Claudio Neves Valent, the MIT professor in Massachusetts, while also confirming he died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So isn't that convenient how well it was wrapped up for us all? They don't even have to put forth any effort to go find him now. It's all done. In an undated handout photo of Brown and MIT gunman Claudio Valenti, 48, who was found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound on December 18th. So I don't know. Maybe, perhaps it is the correct guy. I don't know. I have my doubts. One of the crazy things that happened this last week with this, before this broke about them finding the body here of this guy, was that Brown University removed a page from their website of a Muslim faculty person who they were worried was going to be doxxed because he looked exactly like the person in the video, the surveillance video, the ring camera footage, walking up and down the different streets and stuff around the university there. And, built very similar to this guy. So maybe there's no connection, but it is interesting that Brown University first went there. They wanted to defend their administrative person, whoever he was, Mustafa something or other, and they removed his picture from the website to protect him. because then that got me thinking, well, that makes sense that he would have access. If he was involved, he would have access to just walk right in and probably not have to report to any sort of security or anything like that if he was involved. But they're saying, of course, that it wasn't him at all. It was this guy. What's his name? Valente. So I don't know. But of course, they're connecting it to the other person that was shot and killed as well. The engineer here. Valente studied in Lisbon with MIT nuclear science professor Nuno, whom he shot dead in his Brookline, Massachusetts home on December 15th. So here he is here. 48-year-old former physics student with the Miami address. So I don't know if they can actually place him at this guy's house or not. This guy was the one that was shot and killed. But the whole thing just seems really strange to me. How it's all wrapped up nice and tidy now. So anyway, that is a New York Post article, and we'll link to this in the Substack post that I send out. Probably be on Tuesday this week. Brown University shooter identified as Valente, legal resident from Portugal, age 48, and a graduate student at Brown. So perhaps that was him. It's hard to say. Thought this was funny. The picture of the hearse here, it says the Clinton Foundation witness removal. Pretty funny. Yeah, anyway, that is an X post here. And then after a conservative was assassinated at Brown, President Trump makes his move. So this is Ella was the person who he was targeting there at Brown. After a conservative by the name of Ella Cook was assassinated at Brown, the details didn't just trickle out. They had to be dragged into the light thanks to the woke officials who were overseeing the case. What authorities are now confirming raises questions the media clearly hoped wouldn't be an issue, starting with who the shooter was and how he got there and why certain facts were slow-walked. As police began publicly identifying the suspect, the story immediately became more complicated than many in the media were prepared to deal with. The Providence, Rhode Island chief of police confirmed the identity of the Brown University shooter, along with several details that changed how this case should be understood. Yeah, they did do that. Breaking, Providence, Rhode Island chief of police said the Brown University shooter was a Portuguese national named Claudio Valente. Shooter was an immigrant student and a Muslim who shouted "Allah Akbar." This is why Brown covered it up. Yeah, there were several people that were saying that he did yell that as he was shooting people. They wanted to protect an immigrant student. They should be held accountable. Part of their settlement agreement with the Trump administration was to limit the amount of foreign students and to have stricter standards for foreign students. And then here are the two students that were killed. The killer was a foreign national, an immigrant student who was found dead by suicide before a motive could be fully examined. Some believe that's a very convenient outcome for the left. It sure seems like it, doesn't it? Again, I don't know that we'll ever know what's going on here. And I'm not sure the feds were involved. So I think this was simply a dropped ball on the part of the local law enforcement, as far as I can tell. The Rhode Island Keystone Cops. That is what it seemed like. Anyway, that is a Revolver article. And then it says, watch, Rhode Island police are giving the Keystone Cops a run for their money. You thought I was teasing, didn't you? At this point, the investigation into the Brown University shooting is starting to feel less like a serious manhunt and more like a goofy Saturday Night Live parody. This is one of the most surveilled campuses in the country. They have cameras on every corner, keycard access everywhere, and an Ivy League security apparatus that rivals some small cities, for crying out loud. And yet, days later, authorities are still asking the public for, quote, any incidental detail, while releasing grainy footage on a short, fat dude walking outside in the dark, which I mentioned a little bit ago could pass for either one of the two people. The person that they found, but also this other Mustafa person that they removed from the website. It says even Trump has weighed in publicly asking how a modern university like Brown could possibly have so few usable security cameras. Yeah. They literally had like 800 cameras and none of them were working. So, very convenient, wasn't it? That's always the way it works. I remember there was no cameras that were working on the Pentagon either when 9/11 happened. Those cameras all were just mysteriously stopped working. I don't know. Just what happens. You know, when you have days where physics don't matter, then I guess it's possible. Which clearly 9/11 was as well. So here's the guy with the guy that they supposedly found, and we'll never know, will we? But yes, the Keystone Cops of Rhode Island. Fundraiser for Australian hero who disarmed terrorists during Bondi Beach. Some people are saying Bondi Beach. I don't know which it is. Mass shooting surpasses $2.6 million. Ahmed Al-Ahmed was shot twice while wrestling the weapon away from alleged attacker at the Hanukkah celebration. Yeah, what they don't tell you here is that he was shot twice, once by one of the assailants, I think in the arm. That's why he's got his arm all bandaged up here. But as he's walking away, trying to go get help for the gunshot that he received, he gets shot in the back by one of the Australian police. Isn't that nice? That's the main people that they're shooting are the people trying to help. Anyway, yeah, it says as of Sunday morning, $2.64 million have been raised through nearly 45,000 donations for Al-Ahmed, Syrian-born Australian Muslim who was one of dozens wounded during the attack when the second gunman fired on him. Yeah. In a moment of chaos and danger, he stepped forward without hesitation. That's something the police don't really like you to do, is it? The organizers added that the campaign was created to show gratitude and support for someone who demonstrated incredible courage when it mattered the most. Footage shows from the scene where Al-Ahmed, a father of two young daughters, ages 5 and 6, sneaking up behind the attacker as shots are fired off camera. He's then seen tackling the gunman and wrestling the weapon away from him before turning the weapon on the attacker and holding him at gunpoint. Yeah, what I'm looking for, though, is do they bother saying? Because that's what happened. He did turn the gun on the attacker, yes. He didn't shoot the attacker like many people probably would have done at that point. He turned and tried to walk away, and that's when the police shot him. This guy. So, way to go, Aussie police. I mean, they're almost as good as the Rhode Island police, aren't they? Really makes you wonder who your enemies are. January 6th, provocateur Jake Lang threatens prison break for Tina Peters. I saw this and I'm like, that's probably not a bad idea. She needs to be removed from prison for sure. This type of inflammatory theatrical rhetoric is contrary to who Tina Peters is, what she stands for, and undermines her lawful actions. Yes, of course, that's true. But it is interesting. Jake Lang, January 6th, defendant running for U.S. Senate in Florida, posted an explicit threat on Monday declaring he would organize a prison break for Tina Peters, a former county clerk serving 9 years stemming from her efforts to prove election fraud unless she is released by January 31st, 2026. The inflammatory post on X escalates ongoing tension over Peters' imprisonment and raises new questions about Lang's motivations, and amid persistent allegations from within the January 6th community that he may be a federal informant, because he said that, I guess. Lang's post announced, "We are the people coming to break Tina Peters out of prison in 45 days. I don't think he's serious about that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I sincerely doubt it. He claims that if Peters was not released from La Vista Correctional Facility in Pueblo by this deadline, that U.S. Marshals and January 6ers Patriots will be storming in to free Tina." Yeah, I think he did that mostly for clicks, don't you? But I do think what needs to happen is, like I said before, Trump needs to federalize the prison and then go in and remove her. Because that's the only way she's going to get any justice, and keeping in mind how bad her health is at the moment. So I thought that was kind of interesting that you got somebody out there saying we're going to break her out of prison. Wow. Pretty crazy. A couple MSN articles. U.S. plans to stop recommending most childhood VAXXs and defer to doctors. How about that? Trump administration plans to shift the federal government away from directly recommending most VAXXs for children and suggests they receive fewer shots to more closely align with Denmark's immunization model, according to two people familiar with the matter. Federal health officials are weighing VAXX guidance that would encourage parents to talk to a doctor to make decisions for most shots, according to the people who spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe internal deliberations. This approach would mark a fundamental shift in the U.S. healthcare system, which generally relies on federal health agencies to guide how patients are protected against disease. And of course, we all know, if you listen to this show, we all know that VAXXs protect you from literally nothing. All they do is make your health worse because you cannot inject health. Plain and simple. It says it was not immediately clear which shots would no longer be recommended. The plans are still in flux. So I thought that was good news. We'll see if it actually happens or not. And it is interesting that the mainstream media, MSN in this case, is reporting that. So we'll see. Another big story this week was what happened to Rob Reiner. Very tragic. Nick Reiner really resented his dad, Rob, hated himself for not being as prolific. Nick Reiner, who was arrested on charges of murdering his famous father, Rob, really resented his dad. And Insider told Page 6, which I don't know what that is. Maybe a Hollywood rag type thing. I don't know. Our source elaborates that Nick hated himself for not being as talented, prolific, or beloved as his dad or granddad. Yeah, his granddad, I think a lot of people probably forgot, was Carl Reiner. Carl Reiner, you may remember, was on, if you ever watched the Dick Van Dyke Show, his father, Carl Reiner, was on the Dick Van Dyke Show a lot. He was the, forget his name on that show, but he was the main person that Dick Van Dyke and his crew of comedy writers were writing for. Maybe you guys can put that into chat if you've seen Dick Van Dyke recently. But yeah, Rob Reiner had some really, really interesting and good movies. The Princess Bride, for me, is probably one of my top movies. And he made that brilliant film. But he needed to keep his mouth shut about politics because he definitely stepped into it when he got into that. But definitely did not deserve what happened to him. That is just horrible. Says Rob's father, Carl Reiner, was also an actor, comedian, screenwriter, director, and author whose career spans 7 decades and was marked by numerous accolades as well. Meanwhile, Nick, 32, has been battling drug addiction for more than half of his life. He co-wrote the semi-autobiographical film Being Charlie. Interesting name, huh? About his almost 20 stints in rehab, which was directed by Rob. On Sunday afternoon, Rob and his wife, Michelle Singer Reiner, 68, were found stabbed to death in their LA home located in the neighborhood of Brentwood, with insiders claiming their throats had been slit following a very loud argument with a family member. Yeah, I think it was reported at least that they were at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party, and that's when a lot of this stuff transpired as far as the arguments and stuff. So I don't know. Here's Carl Reiner right here. So Rob Reiner's father, Carl Reiner. So anyway, very sad, but yes, when you have a situation like that where you get drugs involved, anything can happen, and evil does often take over, and it certainly did in his case. That's really too bad. But that is an MSN article, and then this one too, why Nick Reiner will likely plead not guilty for the murder of the parents. He struggles with schizophrenia. That's why. He reportedly been diagnosed with schizophrenia before his parents' stabbing deaths, and the medications he was taking were allegedly making him act erratic and dangerous. You know, that's probably true, honestly. These drugs that they get people on can really cause all sorts of new problems. And says about a month ago, doctors reportedly changed Nick's meds, at which point he became, quote, out of his head. So it sounds like it. Sounds like it. Again, really sad, but I don't know. I'm not sure if he'll see. I mean, they're going to punish him. Obviously, they have to because he did the deed. But it's too bad that it had to come to that, and that the one of the main reasons is most likely all of the drugs that were involved. Seems like. And then another tragic story from earlier in the week. Plane crash. NASCAR champ Greg Biffle's wife, Christina, sent a chilling text to her mother just moments before the fatal plane crash. So this is Biffle, his wife, and 2 kids. Christina Biffle, wife of NASCAR champion Greg Biffle, reportedly sent a chilling text message to her mother just moments before the fatal plane crash that tragically killed the couple and their family. On Thursday, just before her death, Christina, 35, texted her mother and said, "We're in trouble." Quote, "We're in trouble." Although it was initially reported that 6 people died in the crash, authorities later announced that 7 people had died after the Biffle family's Cessna private jet crashed while attempting to land at Statesville Regional Airport in North Carolina on Thursday. They'd been headed to Sarasota, Florida, where they're going to visit a family friend. So, very sad. But yeah, very tragic. And once again, another plane crash. Seems to be never ending. That is an OAN article. And then Headline USA article I pulled up. Legal immigrant hits ICE agent with an SUV and then bites another one. He rammed his SUV into an ICE vehicle, striking the second agent, prompting the shots, which did not hit him. So things are getting crazy out there. These ICE people just trying to do their jobs are the ones that are bearing the brunt of people's attacks. Of course, it's all coordinated. We know that. An ICE agent fired shots Sunday at a Cuban immigrant living in the U.S. illegally after the man struck the agent and another one with an SUV in Minnesota's state capital. The man also bit an ICE agent as officers subdued him outside his apartment after he tried to flee on foot. Wow. So it's just getting crazier with the whole ICE thing. Anyway, that's a Headline USA article. And then, yet again, another black on white stabbing. And because the people involved, the perpetrator involved, was of the proper color, you won't really hear this story in the mainstream. Black Texas teen held on... So again with Texas, this happened, the other one happened at the football game months ago. That was also in Texas. Black Texas teen held on $3 million bond after fatally stabbing white classmate with scissors multiple times in the neck. Students reveal lack of discipline in previous infractions involving weapons and assault. So they didn't take care of the problem when it happened back then, and now this young man is dead. 18-year-old Texas teen Andre Matthews appears in court after murdering 16-year-old Andrew Meismer in school with scissors. Yeah, and what's crazy is all they did was basically just resume school again right away. I was looking to see if... Here, students protested the violence, calling for justice for Andrew earlier in the week. They're not separating these kids that clearly aren't fit to be in a normal classroom environment and are a danger to other students. So they could have stopped it, and yet they didn't. The lack of discipline is likely due to the school practicing now rescinded Obama and Biden era DEI practices that told schools to look the other way when blacks commit crimes or break rules or face revocation of funding for alleged violations of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So there you go. I don't guess it says it in here, but yeah, they barely even stopped class for this murder. I mean, I'm just kind of joking in a way. They did, but they were back in school like right away. Instead of, shutting it down for a number of days and having a group session with the kids and all this stuff like you would think that they might do, given the fact that it happened while these students were all in class. They didn't do that, though. So, I don't know. It remains to be seen. I think I may have another tab pulled up on that story. If not, though, I'm sure be reporting on that one again because there's certainly more to come on this particular story. I don't think it's going away anytime soon, unfortunately. And then, along those lines, again, black on white, horror, 75-year-old Seattle woman loses her eye after serial assaulter known to cops hits her face at full force with a wooden board with a screw in it. Here's a wooden board with the screw. Surveillance footage shows Viagela P, P-E-A, approached Markin and swung the wooden club with full force at her face. And here she is. Bystanders rushed to Markin after she hit the ground. She was rushed to a nearby hospital and treated for facial injuries. Family members told the news here that Markin lost eyesight in the damaged eye. P has a long rap sheet and has been booked 8 times this year for assault, indecent exposure, unlawful use of weapons, malicious mischief, drugs, and property destruction. So, and then they just turned him loose every single time. He was arrested in 2011 for stabbing 2 people. One of the victims 8 times, but he was only sentenced to 18 months of community custody, which is barely a slap on the wrist. To take a wood club with nails, I think it was screws, and hit her at full force in the face. I don't understand it, the victim's son said. Yeah, it's meant to confuse people and terrify them. It is a form of terrorism. That's what it is. It's all planned. Yeah, she was just, I don't think the video of it happening is embedded here. She was just literally just standing on the street corner or walking down the street, and he smashes her in the face with the board. So, wow. Again, more evidence, in my opinion, that we are in the end times. Okay, and then this one I thought was interesting just because I've heard a lot of talk about this game over the years. And this one is a little, I guess, closer to home because it says Tennessee Attorney General sues Roblox. Says the game is a gateway for predators targeting children. Tennessee Attorney General announced a lawsuit against Roblox Corporation, which is owned by Microsoft, by the way, last week, claiming the popular game has become a haven for child predators while misleading parents about its safety. And that's something that they've talked about pretty often on some of the various shows on InfoWars. So I already knew about this. And if your kids are playing this game, Roblox, you might want to double check that and think twice about it because it is seriously bad news. Roblox invites children into a fantastic online world with the promise of creativity and play, but that wonderland is a trap that lets the company sell sophisticated predators access to these vulnerable kids. Roblox worked to reduce oversight and child safety resources despite repeated warnings because less overhead meant more profit. And the whole time, the company lied and said safety was its top priority. The allegations paint a disturbing picture of how Roblox's design and features allegedly enable harmful content and grooming. Pure evil. Leftists on Roblox are uploading sick games for children to relive the Charlie Kirk shooting. So that's where we are. Some sort of animated, redo, I guess, of the Charlie Kirk shooting in the game. I think some of that was banned, but I don't know if they can continuously keep it out of the Roblox game. Says nonprofit groups combating child exploitation have long warned that Roblox is often the first point of contact for predators, luring kids into dangerous interactions. The state argues that Roblox delayed implementing better verification measures, putting profits ahead of preventing abuse. Tennessee now joins a growing number of states taking action against Roblox amid nationwide security concerns. So where you don't want this to go, though, is demanding an ID for everyone that is using the internet because of what's happening on Roblox. You don't want to go that far. That's a little too far. You know what I mean? Roblox is the problem here, not me and you, for using the internet. And so that's a little bit concerning to me because I feel like that's where they could go with it. Oh, well, we just have to have a digital ID for everyone. You'll have to show your ID as soon as you get online. And then it's all downhill from there, isn't it? Tennessee is seeking court-ordered reforms to enhance child safety on the platform, as well as civil penalties under the TCPA, which is what? Tennessee something. Child Protection Act, I guess. So anyway, thought I would mention that because undoubtedly if you guys have youngsters in your family, they either are playing or have been playing Roblox. Guaranteed. So it's something to definitely be inquisitive about on your part. All right, and then we've got a couple RT articles. Macron betrayed Merz. French leader reportedly refused to support the German chancellor's push to tap frozen Russian assets to finance Kiev. French President Macron betrayed Merz by failing to back the German chancellor's push to steal Russian assets frozen in the EU to fund Ukraine. Earlier this week, EU leaders failed to agree on the European Commission's controversial proposal to use Russia's immobilized central bank funds, so in other words, money they stole from Russia, to finance Kiev's military and their economy. On Sunday, the FT, Financial Times, citing an anonymous senior EU diplomat, reported that Macron betrayed Merz, and he knows that there will be a price to pay for that. According to the publication, while the French president did not publicly object to the so-called reparations loan proposal, Macron privately called its legality into question. Moreover, his team reportedly indicated that France, saddled with mounting debt, would be unlikely to issue guarantees in case the impounded assets had to be returned to Russia. Sounds like they're already using the money, doesn't it? Yeah, impounded assets. So they wanted to use the impounded assets of Russia, billions of dollars, to fund the Ukraine war against Russia. That's literally what they're trying to do. That's what Merz is wanting to do. And others from the EU. And apparently, Macron has said no, for whatever reason. So that's interesting, huh? Yeah, they're saying that Ukraine will be completely bankrupt by second quarter of next year, is what I've heard. So I would think at some point, that's got to end if they're completely out of money. And I don't know that the EU can prop them up any further at that point. So second quarter 2026 is the posited target there for Ukraine being completely broke. So we will see. Anyway, and then Steve Witkoff calls talks with Putin envoy productive. Russia remains fully committed to achieving peace in Ukraine, President Trump's confidant said. U.S. Special Envoy Witkoff has described the latest negotiations with Putin's envoy as productive and constructive, signaling continued momentum in Washington-led efforts to reach a settlement on the Ukraine conflict. But remember how we started the first article tonight. Let me go back to it here. No documents or any possible peace agreement now. So, I mean, I don't know what to believe here, but clearly what we were talking about early on, this one was propaganda reported by Reuters. But it makes me wonder if this is as well. I don't know. In a statement on X posted on Sunday, Witkoff said that they held meetings over the past 2 days in Florida that included Witkoff, Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, of course, and White House official Josh Gruenbaum. The discussions, he said, were aimed at advancing Trump's peace plan for Ukraine. Russia remains fully committed to achieving peace in Ukraine, Witkoff wrote, adding that Moscow highly values the efforts and support of the United States in resolving the conflict and restoring global security. Neither Washington nor Moscow disclosed specific outcomes from the meetings, but both sides have portrayed the dialogue as constructive, suggesting further contacts may follow. So, I don't know. Not sure what to make of that, other than, it's saying that they're meeting in Florida. So it could be that part of it's true. I don't know. Something to take a look at, though, if you're interested. It's on RT.com. And then this one, too. This one's on Sputnik, though. Russia will adhere to positions discussed in Alaska. And in other meetings with the U.S. representatives, the Kremlin aide, Yuri Ushkatov, had said on Sunday. That's kind of what we were talking about already. We will adhere to what we agreed on in Anchorage and the other meetings with U.S. representatives. So, I mean, Russia is the adult in the room here. That's kind of where I'm at with it. And we're very lucky that they haven't decided to engage further into World War III, because they very easily could have by now, and they have not. They've been very thoughtful with their different moves in this whole situation. So, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. That one's a Sputnik article. And then Information Liberation, there's only one new article this week. ADL, 7 largest Jewish communities hold biweekly meetings to share tips and draft legislation. The 7 largest Jewish communities on Earth hold biweekly Zoom meetings organized by the ADL to share tips and draft legislation that might work in other countries to advance their people's agenda, and the leaders of the ADL themselves have revealed. So there you go. They call themselves the J7. Of course they do. The J7. 7 largest Jewish communities in the world, holding biweekly, I guess, Zoom meetings in order to track what they're all doing and organize for the greater Jewry, if you know what I mean, for Zionism. So anyway, kind of scary. That one's an Information Liberation piece. And then I came across this. I have not watched it yet, but I wanted to link to it in case you guys are interested in this. Exposing the top 5 lies about the Book of Enoch. And I thought, okay, well, that sounds kind of interesting. And I know there are several faces here in the beginning part of this video that I know you would recognize. Tim Alberino being one of them. Says, the Book of Enoch, the Book 1 of Enoch isn't what people think it is. This video will investigate the top 5 lies that influencers have been using to promote Enoch as something that it's not. So I may watch this and see what this is all about. This is kind of an interesting idea. Anyway, it's on a channel called Abraham Overcome Babylon. Fairly decent sized channel on YouTube. All right, and then Zero Hedge article. DOJ drops new Saturday Epstein files, deletes Trump pictures. So that's interesting. DOJ released 3 new folders of Epstein files on Saturday. It says folder number 5 contains mostly what appear to be hard drives and media from both Epstein's lockup and the New York Metropolitan Correctional Center and his property. They also appear to have deleted a file contained in the initial release, see below, that contains a picture of Donald Trump. So So anyway, there's hard drives and CPU here. Another hard drive. Western Digital. I can tell just by looking at it. Folder 6 is mostly court filings related to Epstein and Maxwell's cases. Folder 7 contains information from Epstein's 2007 prosecution. We will update this post if anything of import emerges. Also, since the DOJ placed everything in a PDF file that makes it difficult to navigate, you can browse the first tranche of Epstein files here, which is a link to a site called Epstein Files Browser. And then it says, hilariously or not, the DOJ appears to have deleted a picture with Trump post-release. If you look at folder 1 from the initial release here, which is taking you to a justice.gov website page, document number 468 is now missing. Yeah, you can see it. 467, 469. 468. What was 468? We happen to have it right here. And whose picture is in that drawer? Well, it says Trump, but I'm looking for it. It's kind of hard to see it. Apparently, there's more. In addition to number 468, the image of President Donald J. Trump, at least 18 other documents and files are discovered to have been removed overnight by the Justice Department from what was released yesterday as part of the Epstein files. I guess they thought no one would notice that they're missing a number when it goes from 464, 465, 466, 467, 469, 470. I guess they thought no one would notice. I mean, how ridiculous is that? All they had to do was renumber the files after the one they removed, and then people would never have known. So unbelievably juvenile and silly. It says the 680 pages released yesterday were entirely redacted. Oh, and here's Epstein's estimated net worth as of June 30th, 2019. His total assets as of June 2019 were $559 million. Because he worked so hard, clipping coupons and being frugal with his money. Says, what were you expecting? The long-awaited Epstein files were released a few hours ago by the DOJ as required by the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Solid collection of new pictures and files with massive redactions throughout and no bombshells yet. So anyway, more pictures, more hard drive pictures. David Copperfield in a bathrobe. Not exactly what you want to see, is it? Pam Blondie. Anyway, further information on this Zero Hedge article. Just wanted to mention that one. Pretty wild. PM keeps door open for anti-Semitism Royal Commission. And don't you know, this is talking about Australia. Curbing the spread of anti-Semitism remains a focus for the Prime Minister as he faces growing pressure for a royal commission into the Bondi terror attack. Anthony Albanese told reporters on Saturday safety and other community support measures continue to be rolled out. In other words, we're going to punish the white people even more. We're not doing it enough, so this gives us license to do that. So that's what they actually mean. Not the Muslims, not the people who perpetrated this crime. No, they're free to go. They're free to live their lives. They're free to commit other terrible acts of violence. Totally fine. We're going to punish the white people who did nothing. That's what he means. So I just thought I would reinterpret that for you a little bit. Anyways, that is Australia for you. So, yeah. They're going to be going hard and fast against anti-Semitism now. Trump announces warrior dividend of $1,776 to every U.S. soldier in primetime speech. Gee, I wonder how he came up with that number. President Trump, in a rare primetime address to Americans, said, "I inherited a mess from the administration of former President Biden. The warrior dividend Trump announced for 1,450,000 U.S. service members will cost about $2.5 billion. Trump predicted the largest tax refund season of all time in 2026. Gee, we could hope. At a time when many Americans are worried about inflation and the strength of the economy. So yeah, it says in a rare televised primetime address, he announced a plan to send more than 1 million members of the U.S. military a $1,776 warrior dividend. So I'm not sure, other than being in the military, I'm not sure what you'd have to do to qualify for that, but I don't know if they'll just all get it or if it will even happen. Most likely people will hold him accountable for this, so being how he's announced it, this will probably happen, is my guess. So $1,776 coming to each and every U.S. soldier. So, pretty cool. You wouldn't see that from Biden, that's for sure. I came across this and just thought it was very emblematic and very humorous in a way. From Menachem Begin, the sixth Prime Minister of Israel, in a speech to the Knesset in 1982, says, quote, "Our race is the master race. We are divine gods on this planet. In fact, compared to our race, other races are beasts and animals, cattle at best," says this guy. Cattle at best. So just remember that. So that is an interesting one, huh? Yeah, and then back to Australia again. Australia launches biggest gun buyback in 30 years after the Bondi Beach terror attack. Because that's what the criminals did. They went and legally purchased their guns. Because that's what criminals do. They follow the law, by definition. Prime Minister announces first firearm buyback since Port Arthur massacre and designates Sunday a national day of reflection in honor of Hanukkah shooting victims. Yeah, he said to make sure you put a candle in your window at a certain time. Yeah, that's their solution to this. Put a candle in your window. That's going to fix it. The federal government will launch a new gun buyback scheme in response to the Bondi Beach terror attack, and what Anthony Albanese says will be the biggest collection of weapons since the Port Arthur massacre nearly 3 decades ago. It comes as New South Wales announced a suite of gun control measures, including capping the number of firearms most recreational shooters can hold at 4. Cost for the buyback, which is expected to see hundreds of thousands of weapons destroyed, will be split between the federal government and the states. I came across this and just thought I would read through it just because I think it's very telling. And let's start with the bottom part here. This is a letter to Karl Marx from Baruch Levy, I guess, somewhat known Jewish person here, dated June 1st, 1928. Again, Baruch Levy wrote a letter to Karl Marx June 1st, 1928. He said, "The Jewish people as a whole will be its own Messiah. It will attain world dominion by the dissolution of other races, by the abolition of frontiers, the annihilation of monarchy, and by the establishment of a world republic in which the Jews will everywhere exercise the privilege of citizenship. In this new world order, the children of Israel will furnish all the leaders without encountering opposition. The governments of the different peoples forming the world republic will fall without difficulty into the hands of the Jews. It will then be possible for the Jewish rulers to abolish private property and everywhere to make sure use of the resources of the state. Thus will the promise of the Talmud be fulfilled, in which is said that when the messianic time has come, the Jews will have all the property of the whole world in their hands." How about that? What do you think about that one? June 1928. So I think that describes what we're seeing, at least to some degree. You know, people get all upset about why is always, all these people constantly talking about what's happening in Israel? Why is it such a big deal? It's because we're in the end times. I don't think a lot of people who are asking that question realize it's because we're in the end times. The focus has returned back to Israel, and it's not just the little country over there in the Middle East, but the actual Israel, which is the people of God. And but that, of course, is not who Baruch Levy is talking about here. He's talking about the soon-to-be nation-state that wasn't even in existence when he wrote this letter to Karl Marx, 1928. That was a full, 20 years before Israel even became a nation. So, anyways, very interesting, huh? That was a neat little piece that I found on Daily Crow. And then this Rabbi Yehuda Kaplan, Trump's pick for combating anti-Semitism, says the State Department is going to have a whole division for fighting anti-Semitism and changing social media algorithms with the help of tech leaders. Meaning with the forced help of tech leaders. That's, I think, what he actually means, but pretty interesting, huh? That is a look at that. That is a X post from a channel called AF Post, America First Perspective. So yes, the Trump's soon-to-come anti-Semitism czar, Rabbi Yehuda Kaplan, fighting anti-Semitism, changing social media algorithms with the help of tech leaders, with the arm twisting of the tech leaders, I think. Of course, some of them are happy to help. All right, and then this one from a website called Israel Hayom, I guess, how NVIDIA plans to teach AI to live in the real world. In an exclusive interview, the vice president of Omniverse and simulation technology at NVIDIA, Rev Laberdian, reveals how they will power the next generation of robots capable of navigating real-world environments. Before a humanoid robot can open a door without breaking the key in the lock, lift a glass without shattering it, or cross a street without startling a driver, it needs to train extensively. Similarly, before a factory robot learns to react to a bolt falling from a conveyor or another robot suddenly slowing in the work path, it must experience these scenarios repeatedly, thousands of times in situations no one would want to test around humans. The robot accomplishes all of this in one place, the simulator. NVIDIA's simulation world, Omniverse, the company's virtual environment platform, which we talked about on this before, and Anthony Patch, my good friend and mentor, has talked about the Omniverse for a long time. NVIDIA and what they were using this Omniverse to do. NVIDIA Simulation World, the Omniverse, the company's virtual environment platform, serves as the environment where robots are born, quote unquote born. It functions as a cognitive kindergarten where humanoid robots learn to walk, operate, understand, react, fall, and rise. Just as an infant develops cumulative motor and cognitive abilities, the robot learns within an artificial world governed by real-world physical laws. The simulator generates thousands of situational variations: a glass falling at a different angle, a slightly higher step, weak lighting, a person crossing too quickly in the movement path, to teach the robot to react to as many scenarios as possible. If we want to build intelligence that understands the physical world and operates within it, we need to teach it in a world similar enough to reality so it can function within its safety, efficiency, and controllability. Rev Laberdian, NVIDIA's vice president of simulation technologies and the Omniverse, said in an exclusive conversation with this website. That's him there. Rev Laberdian, I guess. Anyway, and this got some background on him. This is the CEO of NVIDIA, or as Donald Trump calls it, NVIDIA. Shows you how clueless Donald Trump is. He calls NVIDIA the the leading tech company probably in the entire world. He calls them NVIDIA. No, it's NVIDIA. And it's Jensen Huang that we're looking at here. He's the CEO of NVIDIA. From language understanding to world understanding. Releasing the genie from the GPU. Again, GPU, graphical processing unit, if you didn't know. Far beyond what we imagined. The network that learned to see. So there's quite a bit here. I thought it was kind of interesting just because you don't really see all that much about NVIDIA's Omniverse. And that's really what this is about. Pretty wild. And then this one from Singularity Hub, along those lines. These robots are the size of single cells. Single cells. And cost just a penny a piece. Look at this. Single cell sized robots. These microbots have tiny computers, sensors, and actuators. They can sense temperature and swim autonomously. When it says swim, I think you probably know, just like I do, what they mean. They mean inside the human body. That's what they mean. I don't know if it actually says that. We'll see. Robots, each the size of a single cell, casually turn circles in a bath of water. Suddenly, their sensors detect a change. Parts of the bath are heating up. The microbots halt their twirls and head for warmer waters, where they once again settle into lounge mode, all without human interference. So I was just talking about it in a testing situation here. Anyway, spooky physics. Intelligent living microbots surround us. Despite their miniature size and lack of a central brain, single-celled creatures are quick to sense, learn, and adapt to shifting surroundings. If evolution can craft these resilient microorganisms, why can't we? Do you think evolution crafted any resilient microorganisms? I know I certainly don't. So far, the smallest robots that can sense, be reprogrammed, and move on command are at least bigger than a millimeter, or roughly the size of a grain of sand. Further shrinking runs into roadblocks based on fundamental physical principles, just as quantum computing departs from everyday physics with one computational quirk famously called spooky action at a distance by Albert Einstein. The rules that guide computer chip and robotic performance also begin to behave differently at the microscopic scale. For example, forces on robots' surface become disproportionately large, so the devices stick to everything, including themselves. This means motors have to ramp up their power, which swiftly exhausts scarce energy resources. Drag also limits mobility, like trying to move with a parachute in a strong wind. Processors suffer too. Shrinking down computer chips cause noise to skyrocket, while sensors rapidly lose sensitivity. You can get around all this by controlling a bot's movement externally with lights or magnets, which offloads multiple hardware components. So it goes on. Honey, I shrank the chips. It goes on from there. There's a little bit more. Again, that is a Singularity Hub article. And then Futurism article that I came across. The things that young kids are using AI for are absolutely horrifying. And again, kind of like the Roblox article I mentioned tonight, if you have youngsters in your family, just be careful of what they're using AI for. It says, we have a pretty big issue on our hands that I think we don't fully understand the scope of. New research is pulling back the curtain on how large numbers of kids are using AI companion apps, and what it found is troubling. A new report conducted by the digital security company Aura, A-U-R-A, found that a significant percentage of kids who turn to AI for companionship are engaging in violent role plays, and that violence, which can include sexual violence, drove more engagement than any other topic kids engage with. Drawing from anonymized data gathered from the online activity of roughly 3,000 children age 5 to 17 whose parents use Aura's parental control tool, As well as additional survey data from Aura and Talker Research, the security firm found that 42% of minors turn to AI specifically for companionship or conversations designed to mimic lifelike social interactions or role-play scenarios. Conversations across nearly 90 different chatbot services from prominent companies like Character.ai to more obscure companion platforms were included in the analysis. Of that 42% of kids turning to chatbots for companionship, 37% engaged in conversations that depicted violence, which the researchers defined as interactions involving themes of physical violence, aggression, harm, or coercion. That includes sexual or non-sexual coercion. The researchers clarified, as well as descriptions of fighting, killing, torture, or non-consensual acts. Half of these violent conversations, the research found, included themes of sexual violence. The report added that minors engaging with AI companions in conversations about violence wrote over 1,000 words per day, signaling that violence appears to be a powerful driver of engagement, the researchers argued. So that is pretty interesting. Research comes as high-profile lawsuits alleging wrongful death and abuse at the hands of chatbots and so forth. People dying by suicide, teenagers, and so forth. So something to definitely keep your eyes on. This is a Futurism article. And again, if you have little kids, you might want to pay attention to this. Or if you have, grandkids, you might want to look at this as well. Slay News article, UK government rejects public calls to reverse censorship laws. Of course they do. The UK's Socialist Labour Party-controlled government has rejected calls from the British public to roll back the Orwellian censorship laws instead of doubling down on digital restrictions, even as backlash intensifies at home and abroad. Britain's globalist government rejected widespread public demands to roll back its sweeping Online Safety Act, OSA. More than 160,000 Britons signed a petition, that'll work, urging Parliament to repeal the act. A law critics warn has rapidly evolved from a child protection measure into one of the most aggressive censorship systems in the democratic world. Yes, and who is it that's in charge over there? Who is it that's this guy's boss? You know who I'm going to say, don't you? King Charles III. Yes, they have one of the worst censorship systems in the entire democratic world. Instead of reconsidering, MPs use the debate to push for even stricter controls on VPNs, age verification tools, encrypted messaging platforms, and AI chatbots. The debate in a sparsely attended Westminster Hall session revealed a stark divide as the public demands digital freedom and the government presses for deeper surveillance and expanded authority. Law fueled a 700% surge in VPN use. Since the OSA took effect, VPN usage across the UK has skyrocketed by 700% as citizens turn to privacy tools to escape the law's sweeping content restrictions. Yeah, and if you guys don't know what a VPN is, I know I've tried to use them before and find that for what I do, they generally slow down my ability to transfer big files, large files like video files and audio files, so I ended up not using a VPN. But what they do is they mask your IP address so that it's harder for the end server, the end computers that you are connecting with to recognize your IP address. Think of your IP address as your phone number, your home phone number. Well, your computer, your device, your mobile phone all has its own unique IP address while you're connected and using it. Now, that does change from time to time, but what a VPN does is it masks that number so that it can't really easily be traced back to your device. So that's the idea with a VPN. So it's saying, though, that VPN usage across the UK skyrocketed 700% as citizens turn to VPN usage for privacy tools in a bid to escape the law's sweeping content restrictions. The explosion in VPN adoption prompted MPs to suggest regulating the tools outright, a proposal that has alarmed civil liberties groups who say the government is inching toward full control over online access. That's the idea. It's a plan. It's not an accident. Yes, that's what they want. And then this article is talking about Ofcom as well, which is compliance demands over in the UK. Big organization over there. Anyway, yeah, I just thought I would mention that. That's a Slay News piece. But yeah, King Charles III, well in control over there, it sounds like. Not Starmer, contrary to popular belief. He's merely a puppet. Merely a puppet. Okay, and then the Rasmussen reports. Let's see here. I don't think I pulled up anything specific. There was one interesting thing I saw about travel. I was looking to see if that's still here. 71% will stay home for the holidays. 71%. I think that's a rather large number. Rather large number, it seems to me, like for traveling. Barely 1 in 5 Americans are planning to travel for the holidays, but 1/3 expect visits from friends and family. The latest Rasmussen reports National Telephone Online Survey finds that just 21% of American adults plan to travel away from home this holiday season, which is down from 26% in 2022, while 71% don't expect to travel for this year's holidays. So what about you guys? Are you traveling for the holidays? We're not. We're staying right here. So we have people coming to see us, but we're not going to be, and they're only coming from local. So we're not doing any long distance traveling. So let me know what you guys are doing this week as far as the Christmas holiday. Wise Wolf Media, let's see here. Looking to see if there's any new articles. Digital Slavery, Pastor's Field Report on Digital Identity, Economic Coercion, and the Shape of the Beast. So that was just published on the Wise Wolf Substack. Probably worth a look. There's usually some pretty good stuff on here. Weirdest Stories of 2025. A Year in the Twilight Zone. Boy, it sure was. A collection of the strangest things that happened this year and why you should be paying attention. Let's look at that. Twilight Zone was, I always thought, was an interesting show. That is how, let's see, it says, you unlock this door with the key of curiosity. Beyond it is another dimension, a dimension of sound, of light, of mind. You are moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You have just crossed over into the year 2025 zone. That is how Rod Serling might have introduced the past 12 months, and honestly, he would have been underselling it, because 2025 has been the kind of year that makes you wonder if reality itself has sprung a leak. The stories you're about to read are not fiction, they are not speculation, they are documented events that appeared in news reports, scientific journals, the government, and government testimonies throughout the year. Some were covered extensively and then memory holed. Others barely made a ripple despite being genuinely bizarre. All of them happened, all of them remain unexplained, and all of them suggest that the world is far stranger than the one that we think we live in. And says, so dim the lights, settle in, and let us take a walk through the weird side of 2025. I'm looking to see what, well, the first thing here is the drone panic that no one explained. Starting in November 2024, spilled into the new year like a fever dream that would not break. Yeah. Residents across New Jersey began reporting mysterious objects in the night sky, drones that did not behave like any drones they had ever seen. These were not hobbyist quadcopters buzzing around backyards. Witnesses described objects as large as automobiles. Yeah, you remember that? Flying in formation, hovering silently over residential neighborhoods, military installations, and nuclear power plants. The reports multiplied. Sightings spread to New York, Pennsylvania, and other East Coast states. Videos flooded social media showing clusters of lights moving in ways that defied easy explanation. So it goes on. Yeah, that was one of the weird things. Interstellar visitor that defies explanation. Yeah, that's 3i Atlas. July 2025, astronomers discovered something that should not exist. Talking about 3I Atlas. Just trying to get an idea for what some of these crazy articles are talking about here. 315 human sacrifice victims found in the Nevada sand. So, Miss Emily, I guess this one's for you. July 28, 2025, a hiker was walking through the desert outside Searchlight, Nevada, stumbled upon something that would haunt anyone who saw it, scattered across a multiple landscape, arranged in neat rows, as if placed deliberately, were over 300 piles of cremated human remains. Not one pile, not 10, over 300. The Bureau of Land Management confirmed the remains were human. I never heard about this story, did you guys? Investigators found fragments of urns among the ashes. They found zip ties, the kind funeral homes use to seal bags of cremains. They found what one source described as pieces of burned flesh mixed with bone fragments and ash, suggesting incomplete cremation or the mixing of cremated and uncremated remains. Whoa. Who were these people? Where did they come from? Why were they dumped in the desert like garbage? Yeah, and put in neat piles. Why would they do that? Very strange. I had not heard about that one. The skies are full, and the government is not talking, is the next article. Photographs from before Sputnik. Specifically talking about the Russian Sputnik. The faceless figure at the castle gates at Chester Castle. Didn't know about that one either. Here he is. Very strange. AI agents who invented religion. Weird. So there's a lot here. Anyway, that is a weird one, but that's on Wise Wolf Media. It sounds like it should be more related to Halloween versus the New Year. But anyway, it's what they just recently posted, I guess yesterday, on Wise Wolf's Substack. Always interesting. All right, let's see. WNG.org. I thought I would look at a few of the headlines here. Federal employees given 5-day weekend for Christmas. Isn't that nice? Police ID suspect for MIT and the Brown shootings. Find him dead. Very conveniently, find him dead. Trump redesignates marijuana as having legitimate medical use. So yes, he did do that. If you guys know of anyone using medical marijuana, apparently Trump has signed an executive order that has to do with that. I don't know a lot about it, but I did see that earlier in the week. FBI charges Chinese researcher for E. coli smuggling. Lovely. And then Kirk Cameron responds to backlash and says that he does believe in hell. Okay. So that's on the SIFT. WNG.org. And then let's see. Leo Homan's Substack. There was no new articles on his website. As far as his Substack goes, there's a few new things here. State by state, America is following Canada's euthanasia policy. Yeah, New York has decided to allow doctor-assisted suicides. I don't know if you guys knew that, but that was just announced. So lovely, huh? Trump creates U.S. tech force to hire 1,000 engineers to build AI infrastructure in public-private partnership with Microsoft and Palantir. Doesn't that sound wonderful? Anyway, that is some of the most recent articles on his Substack, leohoman.substack.com. The one and only natural news article I pulled up, China's secret Manhattan project claims a stunning win, a homegrown EUV machine. China has secretly built a working prototype of an advanced EUV lithography machine, a critical tool for manufacturing cutting-edge semiconductors. The project, described as China's Manhattan Project, involved reverse engineering by former ASML engineers working under aliases in a secure Shenzhen facility. Yeah, reverse engineering, meaning they've stolen someone's technology and they're reversing engineering it. They do that a lot. The prototype can generate EUV light, but has not yet produced functional chips, with a realistic target for chip production estimated for 2030. The effort is part of China's 6-year push for semiconductor self-sufficiency coordinated by Huawei and aimed at removing U.S. influence from its supply chains. Yeah, they want to do it without any input from, San Francisco, from the U.S. at all, from the tech sector. The development challenges long-standing U.S.-led export controls designed to prevent China from acquiring such advanced chip-making technology. Well, if they're reverse engineering it, I would say they've already got it, don't you? Anyway, China's Manhattan Project. Semiconductors. Yeah, I think a lot of that stuff is produced at the moment in Taiwan, so I don't know, being how Taiwan is at odds with China always, maybe they don't want to have to, depend on Taiwan for anything. I don't know if Taiwan and China work together at all, or if it's simply if they're simply at odds with each other all the time. But I know that the U.S. and Taiwan certainly work very closely in the semiconductor world. Anyway, that is a Natural News article. And then Wine Press Substack, Pope Leo and the Vatican turns Protestant. And then it says, reneges on essential doctrines about Mary, says she is not a co-redeemer. Okay. Interesting, huh? Hunger Games, Trump announces Patriot Games, and UFC fight at the White House to celebrate country's 250th birthday. I can't think of a tackier thing to do. Seriously, I'm pretty certain that the founding fathers never envisioned a wrestling match on the White House lawn to celebrate 250 years. I'm pretty certain that was never thought of. But it does sort of show you, okay, this is where the United States is 250 years later with Donald John Trump as the president. It kind of fits somehow. All right, and then a few InfoWars articles. I feel like Alex is not really on Candace's side here with the whole Egyptian planes thing. He was kind of trying to call her out on that earlier in the week, saying that it was all made up and it was all a mistake based on another video he saw where somebody supposedly went through all of the, and maybe they did, they went through all of the timeline of the Egyptian planes that Candace has talked about and basically debunked about 66% of what she said. So note the number, 66%. So, yeah, I mean, you can't possibly think that there was anything, non-truthful about that, being how it was 66%. It says Alex issues emergency message to Candace after she launched a new grand hysteria implicating U.S. military days after her Egyptian plane narrative collapsed. I don't think that it did. He's saying that it did because he wants to be right here. But from what I can tell, she hasn't even addressed what he has said about this as far as the Egyptian plane thing. And this is talking more about what we talked about at the beginning of the show tonight, which was Mitch, the military person, and what he talked about as far as being on the base in Arizona the day before Charlie's assassination and running into a few familiar faces like Erica Kirk and others. So, yeah, Alex is saying that basically she's full of it. And I personally think that Candace is not full of it. I think that knows exactly what she's talking about here and reporting what she's come across. So I tend to think that we need to listen to what she's saying about this stuff. Personally. Breaking, Japan just ended the yen carry trade, setting the stage for massive global inflation. That's not good. So this is a video. Something to keep in mind, though. I do think that they're onto something on that. I did see that earlier in the week. Chernobyl nuclear reactor may begin leaking radiation from February bomb damage. Wow. Chernobyl plant workers must keep humidity within a small range within a new containment unit to avoid radioactive releases. Too little and radioactive dust forms. too much and radioactive water forms. A hole in the roof would greatly affect internal humidity. Wow. Yeah, and again, the problems that they're having at Chernobyl are a direct result of what the Ukrainian military and Zelensky and them are doing. They're trying to cause Chernobyl to fail. It says if the old unit collapses, then immense amounts of radioactive dust will form, and worse, nuclear fuel still within the reactor unit may begin to fissile and undergo reactions leading to huge releases of radiation and potential nuclear fire due to the massive heat release. Another meltdown is what they're saying. In February, a drone bombed the Chernobyl nuclear reactor. Yeah, that's what the hole is here in the top. You can see two people right here by the hole. This is a drone bombed the Chernobyl nuclear reactor in Ukraine, damaging the roof of the new safe confinement structure that was placed over the radioactive facility, which suffered a complete meltdown and explosion in 1986. While no radiation was released after February's drone bombing, it was reported Wednesday that the $2 billion protective shield had cracked as a result of the bombing, triggering fears of radiological emissions. But I'm sure it's all totally safe and fine, and none of that's happened yet. Here's a zoom in here of the hole. So again, Zelensky and the Ukrainians are trying to make this thing leaky. So there you go. That happened back in February, and they're still dealing with this. Anyway, that is a InfoWars article. Brown University killer was dead 2 days before the body was discovered. So Valente, the man responsible for the man they said was responsible for the Brown University mass shooting and the killing of a nuclear scientist at MIT, had been dead for 2 days before his body was discovered in a storage unit. An autopsy revealed that the 48-year-old Portuguese national died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head on Tuesday, 2 days before police found his body. Again, very convenient. His body was discovered in a storage unit. Inside the storage unit, police also found a satchel with 2 guns. He was identified as the culprit of the mass shooting there last weekend that killed 2 and injured 9 more. Yeah, and then also the MIT professor as well. So it very neatly wraps up those 2 stories. And there is no conspiracy whatsoever, and don't even think that there is. I thought this one was weird. 12-year-old arrested for armed robbery in Florida may be an illegal alien. 2 victims ambushed by knife-wielding child near park in Fort Myers. So, wow, a preteen suspect facing armed robbery charges in Florida may be in the U.S. illegally. Well, if he's not, maybe they should deport him anyway. On December 12th, Lee County Sheriff's Office received a call from 2 people reporting that they had been ambushed by a boy brandishing a knife in a park in Fort Myers. The first victim said they were walking from the park to a friend's home when the suspect jumped out of the bushes, pointed a knife at him, and demanded his shoes. The victim shoved the suspect and escaped on foot. Good thing he had those shoes. Minutes later, another victim said the suspect rode into the park on a bicycle, menaced him with a knife, and ordered him to hand over his backpack or be stabbed. The suspect reportedly took possession of the backpack and fled the scene with its contents valued at around $400. Both victims positively identified the suspect as 12-year-old Pedro Luis. But I'm sure he's an American citizen. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so that's InfoWars article. I just thought that was funny. He may be an illegal. I would say there's about a 0.001% chance that he's not an illegal. Wouldn't you say? That might be a high number. I don't know. In the wake of the Bondi shooting, Australian PM announces largest gun buyback since 1996. We're getting the dangerous guns off our streets with the national buyback. And Captain Picard has it figured out. As they say, never let a serious crisis go to waste. Here, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, in the wake of terrorist attack on which 2 Muslim men shot up a Hanukkah event on Bondi Beach, killing 15 people. Yeah, they're going to buy back the guns. That's dumb. Yes, Australia has some of the strictest gun control laws in the world, having a mass gun buyback program in 1996. And then this is the explanation of all of that. However, they are going to do even more gun control after the mass shooting at Bondi Beach, where an unarmed civilian had to stop the shooter and was then shot by the police. See, this is what I said when we were back on that page about him. The page didn't mention that. It said that he got shot twice. He got shot once by the person who was one of the attackers, but he also got shot by the police. That's what this article is saying. And this is a link to the article about that. We told you on Tuesday that Australia's National Cabinet was holding an emergency meeting and was going to do something of this nature. Yeah. Australia to enact stricter gun laws to stop terror attacks than current strict gun laws failed to stop. It's just a vicious circle. But that's all they can do, because they certainly do not want to offend the Muslims. I mean, we can't do that by taking their guns. I mean, that's the worst thing you could do, so therefore we're going to punish the white people. So therefore, that makes lots of sense. Good job, Australia. And then this one's a weird one. Another Tennessee story here. Thought I would mention it. A strange smell coming from a Tennessee man's SUV turns out to be a giant python. Thought this was funny just because I was just in Knoxville a few days ago when Knoxville, Tennessee resident Jesse Hodge noticed an unusual smell coming from his car over the course of several days. He scheduled a maintenance checkup, but before he got around to his appointment, he decided to take a look under the hood to see if he could identify what the problem was on his own. The problem ended up being much easier to identify than he expected. And the kid here from Home Alone has it figured out. I raised the hood on the car. I could not believe what I was seeing. Lo and behold, once I pulled it up and propped up the hood, there he lay. He being a giant yellow python coiled up on his battery. Hodge called the animal center to come remove the snake. The exotic pet was discovered to be dead, thankfully. And if you ask Hodge, likely dying from exposure to the cold temperatures. It was chilly there for a day or two when I was in Knoxville, yeah. In case you weren't aware, though, the python is not native to the Great Smoky Mountains. So if you weren't aware, that sums it up. So yes, he found a python on his engine block. Lovely. Leave it to Knoxville. All right, and then GeoWatch for this week, we have 1220. Deadly Windstorm is the name of this one. Deadly windstorm packs gusts over 140 miles per hour. That's an AccuWeather headline. Flash freeze threat looms for Michigan as warmth switches to Arctic blast. Yeah, it just switches. That happens a lot. U.S. rides temperature roller coaster heading into Christmas. Record warmth ahead of Christmas holiday for millions. Climate engineering, chemical ice nucleation, short-term toxic cooldowns are further fueling catastrophic weather and overall meltdown. How much longer can global weather warfare continue before total collapse? So, GAN for this week, which is Global Alert News, is embedded here on the page. And then, of course, it's also on his Dane's Rumble and BitChute channels as well. And this is the YouTube version here embedded on the page. But, yeah, certainly worth a look. And we talked about this, I think, last week. This is even more pronounced than it was last week. 6 to 10 day temperature outlook on the scheduled weather coming up. And Dane sent this to me the other day just to kind of prove his point that he had never, ever seen anything this radical in the U.S. before. How warm everything is. And again, they're not doing a toxic cool down at the moment note that Alaska is cooler. So perhaps the fleets of geoengineering planes are mostly up north at the North Pole in Alaska, because it is cool up in Alaska, believe it or not. It's not super warm there, which it has been and normally is. It's warm down here where we are. So way above normal over a big chunk of the U.S. coming up December 27th through 31st. So something to keep in mind. And if you don't believe me, let's look at this one, Climate Reanalyzer. Days 1 through 3, currently, Sunday, December 21st, we're 10 degrees above normal where I am. But look at some of these other temperatures. 20 degrees above, 23 degrees above, 26 degrees above normal. And that is as of right now. And then it gets even more pronounced, though, just by about Christmas Eve. We are going to be almost 30 degrees above normal, 29 degrees where I am, and more than 30 degrees in a lot of places. That is not normal. This is what happens when they're not doing the chemical flash freezes and cool downs, because either it's gotten too far out of their control or they're elsewhere doing cool downs in other places, which is what I tend to think it probably is. And then days 7 through 10, which would be starting about the 27th, we're still going to be 17 degrees above normal. Still pretty big numbers. So it's going to be a warm one through the end of the year, looks like. And again, that's because they're, for whatever reason, choosing not to do the chemical cool downs over the course of the next few days. I don't know why. Perhaps it's resources. Perhaps they can't control everything the way they have been controlling it. Although I would imagine that at some point in January, it'll all come back again and we'll have probably colder than ever temperatures. We'll see what happens. I've not seen any weather predictions or scheduling for January yet, but I'm just guessing at some point there'll be a week or so, maybe 2 weeks in January, where it will be possibly the most brutal cold humanity has ever faced, or at least that's, maybe the way it will be billed. I don't know. But that will be whenever the fleets of, toxic cool down jets are back in the mix. Because right now, for whatever reason, they're not opting to do that. They're just going to let it get warm, which is highly unusual. All right, and then climateandeconomy.com, roundup of December 20th, climate news, talking about the El Nino, global temperatures, see it going up and up. Scientists have detected a potentially deadly whale virus in the Arctic for the first time using drones. Okay, that's scary. Snowy owl declared regionally extinct in Sweden. Wow, that's sad. So we got more flooding here. EU deforestation, wildfires, floods, and just a little bit of everything. Something for everyone. Fires in Pakistan. So the climate system is coming unraveled bit by bit. And if you've heard Dane talk about any of this stuff in any recent broadcasts, you will hear in his voice how concerned he is about the direction, the way things are headed. So anyway, climateandeconomy.com. And then we talked about Charles earlier because personally I think he will soon be the biblical Antichrist. He's not there yet. I mentioned this last week, though, and this was the, video leading up to what we talked about last week, talking about Charles to share personal cancer journey in new TV message. That's when he came out and announced to the public that, in fact, they're going to be backing him off of some of the medications and stuff they were giving him. So I don't think cancer is going to do him in, personally. So that was a video that I didn't find last week that I happened across this week. Short little video. It's just different clips of him wandering around aimlessly like he normally does. And then, let's see. And then Here's his heraldic achievement, coat of arms, the Prince of Wales. Again, goes back to stuff that Tim Cohen's talked about in his book, The Antichrist in a Cup of Tea. Highly recommend his work on this subject. I think he has done some really good work over the decades, really, on this whole thing with Charles. And again, this is the methodology, the gematria in English and Hebrew, where it's talking about the title here, Charles Prince of Wales, or Prince Charles of Wales, adding up to 666, which then defines scripturally who the person who will be the biblical Antichrist will be. And not only does it work in English, but it also works somehow in Hebrew as well. Both. And here is the layout on that, how that's all figured out. So anyways, pretty wild. And then I came across this one. No doubt many of you have seen this ad, probably just watching YouTube videos. This film called David. I don't know if it's a Disney film or what it is. It just says animated film, so I don't know. Angel Studios. Incredible new animated movie about King David hits theaters on December 19th, so I guess it's already out. From Angel Studios. All eyes are about to be on one of the Bible's most remarkable figures. So, what I thought was interesting was not so much that they're doing a Hollywood version of a Bible character, which you can guess how wrong that will probably go at times. But I was just kind of skipping through this trailer. I can't really play the trailer because it's got copyrighted music in it, which my video will be flagged for. But I can probably play you some of the video here, because I came across something here. I'm going to stop the video when we get to 47 seconds, because that's when the giant comes in. And I wanted to see if truly if they portrayed Goliath with a giant makeup. So as far as will he have 6 fingers? And indeed, look at this shot. Again, I just stopped on this still shot. This is Goliath's hand, apparently. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How about that? So they got that little detail right. I really didn't think that there was any chance that would even be possible. I'm not saying the movie's good. I'm just saying that one detail is correct, apparently, because Goliath was part of the Nephilim. He was a giant. So, pretty wild, huh? So that's encouraging. I haven't seen the movie, so I can't really recommend it. Not going to go that far, but apparently there's some mention of Ark of the Covenant and some other stuff as well. So that's on Israel 365 News. So anyway, those are the articles I had for you guys tonight, 11:19 p.m. Be sure to follow the Diamond Report on Twitter/X if you're not already on there. If you have an account on there, just look up The Diamond Report, or you can just find it at x.com/TheDiamondRPRT is where I am on there. I haven't been retweeting a whole lot of stuff lately, but normally I am on there. And we usually go through some of those things that I have reposted or posted myself. I do put the show from each week. I upload it to X and then link to it also, usually the Rumble version of the show. So we'll do that at some point tomorrow whenever this show is completed and uploaded tomorrow on the various platforms, BitChute, Rumble, Brighteon, and so forth and so on. So anyway, that is all of that. And then Diamond Disc on Substack. Make sure you sign up there if you're not already. And again, I've tried to clean up the screen a little bit and do not have the QR code up there. So let me hit the button just in case you want to scan it. I want to turn it on for just a second, but you got to be fast. So that's the QR code for the Substack page, which is what you're looking at there, the Diamond Report on Substack. And it is interesting that apparently there's been some, as far as Substack goes, there's been some censorship involved with this whole deal with Australia and the mass shooting and stuff there they've already put some limitations on using Substack in Australia. I've already seen reports of that, and I think I mentioned that even earlier tonight. So if I didn't, then maybe I just thought it out loud. But I have definitely heard that. One of the guys that I have heard that from is a Substack account that I've followed for a long time, a guy named John Rappaport, which you may have heard of. He's a anti-VAXX guy, and really, really informed, really smart guy, John Rappaport. And he was the first one I saw reporting about this. So he has subscribers in Australia who could not access his content without proving who they were before they got online on Substack in Australia. So we're already going down these roads. It's already happening. It's unfolding now. So how about that? That did not take long, did it? So anyway, make sure you're on the Substack. Certainly appreciate that. And totally free. And there is a way to contribute to what I'm doing if you're interested. It is there on Substack, and it is there as well on Subscribestar. And that's this page right here, subscribestar.com/diamonddisc. And we've got various options here, all kinds of things involved. I have nobody on any of the upper tiers, but there's some pretty interesting things there, even if you just want to read through some of the different features on what's available. They're there. I put them there just to kind of break things out and let people have some options. But pretty much, I wouldn't say everybody, but most everybody's at the $5 level on Subscribestar. So thank you, Subscribestar subscribers, and also to the Substack subscribers. Thank you guys for being there and for helping me pay the bills. It's always very helpful to not have them come 100% out of pocket. Yes, and then let's look at the most recent comments from you guys. I don't think there's a ton here, but let's take a look here before we go, before we close for tonight. Good evening, folks from the Pacific Northwest. Miss Betty says, Susan says, happy winter solstice. If winter arrives, can spring be far behind? Well, I think we sort of determined that, for right now anyway, even though we're at the winter solstice starting today, it's looking like it's going to be pretty warm, at least in the next little bit, for most of the U.S. Some of us don't have family or big plans. God bless those people too. It's especially hard for them. Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you, Susan. That's true. Yes, some people do not have large families, and this is a very lonely time for those people. And I want to be, tuned into that. And I don't mean to not acknowledge you if that is your case. And if that is your case, know that Jesus is always available. He is always there, and you can always talk to him. Not that you don't already know that, but I'm just saying, never forget, you're not alone. Looks like Matt was here, so hello. Oh, yes, and then Susan answered my question. Carl Reiner was Alan Brady. That's right, on the Dick Van Dyke Show. Very good. I knew somebody would know. Emily had no idea. Yeah, I watched the Dick Van Dyke Show pretty often when I was working nights at the studio in Los Angeles all those years ago, because we had the studio pretty much ran 24/7, and I would go in at work at 6 p.m. and work until 4, 5, 6 in the morning. You can do that when you're 20, 22, 23. And I did do that. And we had Nick at Night on all the time, and that was those old shows like that. Donna Reed Show and Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore and all those old shows like that. So that's where I saw him, was in repeat back in the early 90s. So Alan Brady, yes. Carl Reiner created the show, which was called The Alan Brady Show, that Dick Van Dyke starred in. It was a weird twist. I watched it growing up. Yes, that's right. I forgot about all that. Very good. Susan gets the star for the Alan Brady information. But that was Carl Reiner. And Carl Reiner was Rob Reiner's father. Rob Reiner, who was just murdered by his son. And then Rob Reiner had some really amazing movies as well. My personal favorite was The Princess Bride. That's just a classic movie. Everything in it is just hilarious. If you haven't seen it, you got to watch The Princess Bride. Promise me you'll do that during the course of any time off coming up during the holidays. Princess Bride is awesome. He also did When Harry Met Sally, which was incredible as well, and some other pretty good ones. So, yeah, he had some really good movie making skills for sure. Anyone catch verified through a bank account in the narrative control in Australia? Verified through a bank account? No, I have not seen that. As far as the Online Safety Act, I hadn't seen that, but it doesn't really surprise me. That's where they want to go with it. Is verify everything through a digital ID system that will have your bank account tied to it. So that does make sense. Let's see. Just got back from San Diego, but my kids want me to go back again for Christmas, hoping I can pull it off. Okay. Well, safe travels if that's what you're doing. And, yeah, just be safe on the road. Lots of crazies out there. Yeah, this place is weird and evil. I want out so bad. I know. Somebody's pet snake, expensive albino. Yes, I know. That was a crazy story about the snake on the engine. And then thank you, Emily, for posting all of the links in chat here. I appreciate that. Oh yes, I've seen Princess Bride at least 150 times. Emily and I are apparently on the same wavelength. That is such a good movie. It's so funny. I love that the movie Princess Bride. Who was the dude with 6 fingers? Oh, that's right. I forgot. There was the guy with the 6 fingers. Yeah, he was the guy on the horse. I can't think of his name, but maybe. Oh yeah, trivia question. So she knows the answer. So let us know, Susan. I forget his name. It's been too long since I've seen it. I haven't watched any movies in a long time. Good stuff though. Yeah, excellent movie. It's not a holiday movie, but it is a good, funny type of adventure / family film, and it was really well done for its time. I think it probably came out in about 1987 or something like that. Just a guess. I think that's right. The whole thing about Inigo Montoya. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. That is really, really funny. Oh shoot! You called my bluff. I forget his name. Yeah, no, that's a good trivia question. We can look it up. Let's just look it up here. We got a second. We'll ask the old Goog. Let's see what happens. The Princess Bride 6 finger man. Yeah, Tyrone from Tyrone was that's his real name. 6 finger. Oh, his name was just the 6 figure man. Count Tyrone Rugen. Yeah, that's his name. Princess Bride. Count Tyrone Rugen, the sadistic right-hand man to Prince Humperdinck, who is famously sought by Inigo Montoya for killing his father, a sword maker, and leaving him with scars. Yeah, that's right. Rugen's distinctive 6th finger led Inigo on a 2-decade quest for revenge, culminating in the iconic "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die" scene, where Inigo finally achieves his goal. Yeah, he just keeps saying that over and over and over again. This whole line. "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." He says it over and over. That's one of the shticks about the movie. It's hilarious, and that is Mandy Patinkin, who was absolutely brilliant in that film. And yeah, 1987. That was a good guess. There it is, right there. 6-fingered man. So there you go. Count Tyrone Rugen. That was the answer to the trivia question posed for Miss Susan. Very cool. All right, let me switch back over to my other screen here, and maybe. And then I guess we can wrap it up. So let's see. Oh, I wanted to, I don't think I have it pulled up. Let me look and see if I can find one more thing here. On YouTube. I was going to recommend a song. I can't play this song because of, again, copyrights and stuff like that, copyright issues. I don't want them to flag the live stream for something that you're not really supposed to do. You know, music's one of those things that's highly guarded in the world of metadata, and rightfully so. I mean, songwriters and publishers need to be paid for what they do. full stop. That's where I am. That's part of my world. So I can't really play a song randomly, but I wanted to mention this music video called, what was it? I think it's Good Citizen, maybe? Yeah, Good Citizen. It's a song that I posted on my Facebook page. I'm going to let the video play a little bit. I can't really let the song play, but she starts out with this Orwell quote: "The further a society drifts from truth, the more it will hate those who speak it." And this is we've been talking about Australia a lot tonight, and this is an artist in every sense of the word who is Australian, and she is a really good singer, and this song is called Good Citizen by IMA. So I don't usually recommend music, but this one is really good, and you can probably see the lyrics here as they're going by. And it's all politics and New World Order and, religion, dogma type stuff, and everything. All of the stuff that the New World Order is about. See, digital ID, let's turn up the tax. Mr. Teal, Mr. Anderson, they warned us with the blue pill. It's just really, really well done. IMA is the artist. And again, she's Australian. The song is called Good Citizen. So look it up once we finish up here tonight. Have a look at that video. I thought it was pretty well done. Pretty cool. Pretty cool pop video. All right, let me see if I can get back to my other screen here. Okay, let's play one more short video for tonight. I feel like we're running a little early. And I need to go grab a drink, and then we will wrap it up for tonight. I'm going to play this one now because I didn't want to play it earlier. I was afraid that YouTube might not like it. So let's have a look at this one. Yeah, and I would take it a step further, saying that being how I think we are in the end times, and many other people do as well, based on so many different things that are happening right now, scripturally and otherwise. I think the one world religion will be Islam. Not some combination of Islam and something else. No, Islam. Because you can sum up Islam with 3 words: convert or die. Right? Convert or die. That sums it up, and that also describes the end time final religion. And they are allowing Islam to take over now. It's rolling out. So I think that report does a really good job. Of course, they don't take it to that next step, but that does appear to me to be what's happening. The way things are the way the scroll is unfurling, as you might say. So anyways, thank you guys again for being here tonight, and I hope you all have a blessed Christmas. And I was going to look and see if there were any other comments on the chat here. Well, yeah. What Miss Emily kind of sums it up here. God bless all of you. Hope you have a blessed week and Christmas free of all drama with nothing but love. Yeah, that's exactly true. Hope you and your family have a blessed Christmas, and same to you guys as well. Same to you, Emily, and thank you. Pray abundant blessings to you and your families this Christmas. Much love to all. Yeah, and same to all of you guys. Thank you guys for being here with me every week, week in, week out. You guys are always here. So thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to me. We're a whole other year in at this point. It's hard to believe. We've got one more broadcast left for this year. So 2025, the next show will be, the 28th. And we'll do it again post-Christmas, but pre-New Year's celebration. So we will do 28th at 9 p.m. Central will be the next show. So I hope you guys have a super great week. Hopefully you guys can take some time off and get some relaxing done, even if it's not with family. You just relax and try not to, let the crazy world get to you so much, at least not this week. And remember what is really important, and that is the birth of our Savior, Jesus Christ. And yes, we know it's not actually his birthday, but it is the time of year that we celebrate the birthday, even though, Scripture does not command that we do that. very clearly we don't really have to do that, but I think it is important to spend time with family and to acknowledge the birth of our Savior. And hopefully you guys feel the same way, and we'll do the same thing. And hopefully you guys have a blessed week and are able to bless others with your giving, and as well as, any receiving that might be done as well. And that's something I'm trying to work on this week. And again, don't forget our good friends who we've posted the links in Band in the last couple weeks in the Substack post, the Verbas, and they still need help. They're still trying to reach Mark's still trying to reach his GoFundMe final amount there. I don't have the link here in chat, but we'll leave it in the Substack post if you missed it. I gave this last week, and I just ask that you guys also give to help Mr. Mark and their family. If you missed it, his wife suddenly passed away a few days ago, back on the 2nd. So, and they have 6 kids. So it's Mr. Mark and 6 kids and no mom now. So I know they could definitely use your help. If you want to support somebody, support Mr. Mark Verba. He can definitely use that. So anyway, blessings again to you guys, and hope you have a wonderful week. Hope it is full of joy. Hope it is full of laughter. And I hope that it is full of wonderful time with your family. And we will do it again next week. Love you guys. Blessings to everyone.